And I gave you guys a video right about 6 o'clock this morning, 7 hours ago, as it's saying here. We're going to take a quick look. I'm going to make this the last video for this week, all right? And I'll be back at some other time. I do appreciate those that have participated by liking and commenting, and thank you so much for being so kind. But let's go ahead and wrap this up, all right? So we're going to take a look at what they've done since this morning. If you haven't been following us, I gave two price levels on Sunday, all right, Sunday before the market even came up, and it started in this video here. And you'll want to just go ahead and walk yourself through all of this information. And those two particular prices have held this market for going on 5 days now, because tomorrow I believe that they should end up at that price above. And so there was a price below I gave as well. But before doing so, most view videos here, the threshold, how far the live candle pulled back, the price action trend, you just need to be able to count to 10. And then that price action method, I use the majority principle, which states that the minority is compelled to follow. And then I teach you how to use your bezel, your chart scale, all right? So you don't have to look left to know where the market is going to turn. Really important stuff here. All right, now let's just take a quick peek at a snapshot here, because this was right about right before 9:30. So it was 9:29. You can look on that bar timer right there. It was 9:29. They had just finished up going into the 9:30 bar. That hourly bar, there's the signal. So this was the 9 o'clock bar, and we'll look at it on the chart. There's the signal, the circle with the actual triangle. So if you're not familiar with what we've been doing all week long, I want you to definitely know this signal is important. We had two on this side, and I told you don't want them closing beneath that, and they did, and they gave you the signal. And then, of course, at 9:30, I'm gonna just kind of move this out the way here. All right, now I do want you to take a look at everything. Make sure you just absorb what's in here. We had them signals coming in on the short, and then of course they came up. But then they had a signal over here, I believe, over here on this 1 minute chart, and they closed beneath that. I think it was one right there, but I definitely know it was one right here, and it closed beneath that. And we had it here on this 5 minute. All right, so we had a signal had just fired off, but we were coming into this one right here. All right, at 9:30 there. So let me just kind of get that out the way. Let me just minimize it. And then, of course, yeah, they were coming into that. They closed beneath that signal there, because that was that 5 minute. And they took that dive. Now this is at right out, a little bit outside of 11. That's 11:08 there. And of course, they had turned around and came back up. So that circle without the triangle lets you know there's a rotation. Okay, they probably will give back. All right, so that's important. You can kind of see it right there, and they turned it around and came up. Did the same here, and they came up. All right, so that signal that came in, I went on and marked it here, so you can kind of see it. And again, that's what had happened, and this is them building their self back up, and we'll take a look at that as well. Now here's the 15 minute. There's your hourly. Here's your 1 minute, and that's your 5 minute. I went on and just took the liberty and go ahead and mark up these particular signals here, because I didn't want to have to hold the video too long here. They had a couple of them right here, and just throw that in there. All right, so that's what you have. Let me just go ahead and throw that in there. All right, yeah, so we're going to definitely wrap this up. Let's get the low of this bar here, kind of give you this information going into tomorrow and moving forward. All right, so let's just see if they can stay above here, and that's that. I know they have news at 2:30, so that's 29,299 and a quarter, 29,299 and a quarter. All right, so they managed to get under this one here, which sucks. All right, so let's just kind of remove that, put this here, lock that. All right, and as you can tell, 9:30 they came after. Well, 9:30 they pulled up, and then they came down again closer to this bar here. You can look at that low here, and there's that price 550, 29.55.50, 290.55.50, and then that low there, 290.75. So they came really close to that, and they turned themselves around, and that's on that hourly. All right, and so on your 5 minute, again, that's where they had took that signal out. They closed beneath that signal. I told you don't want them doing that. That's bad. You don't want that happening. And of course, they dove down there. All right, and so now let's look at where we left off this morning. Then I will let you go. And again, I appreciate all of the views that you guys have taken out the time to check out this video, as well as hit that like button. Thank you so much for doing so. All right, so this was this morning. All right, so this was this morning. Yeah, so we were over here. They had pushed down. They kind of lifted up again before 9:30 got there, and they lifted up and went right back into that same area there. And we did the chart scale effect and all of that, so you can go back and take a look at that. They pulled up. You don't want them closing above these bars. You just don't. They had one here, you know, they had one here. You just don't want them doing that. I know they kind of got past these, and I get that too. They had one here before all of that at 7:30. They kind of dove under, kind of pushed up higher. Then they came in with it on this side of it. I'm gonna just mark a couple of these for you. And so you don't have to wonder whether or not the signal work. And again, this is a 1 bar or 2 bar signal, but primarily it's a 1 bar signal. I definitely want to stress that to you. And so it's important. You don't want them closing under it. It can create a major problem. I just want to go and tell you that. And so there were a couple there, and then of course here's that information there. And this is what we're doing now. All right, so let me mark a couple of these as well. And so we missed that one. All right, so yeah, so they're up. That's all. They're up. That's what they're doing. They're going. I missed one here. It's a couple of them here. I missed a couple of them. No worries. You can definitely again just take a look and you can see what's going on. All right, so that again is my time with you. I hope you have enjoyed this brief time that we've spent together. I know I'll be taking breaks. Just try to give you time to digest what's here on the channel. There's tons of videos, ton of information I've covered in real time, as well as, you know, of course, just walking you through the chart just a bit. But the goal is to get you, of course, to look at the market very objectively. There's only three things to look for primarily when it comes to price activity, and I'll go ahead and just list this really quickly here. You want to find a bar, the live candle, the one that's moving currently right now. I doubt that mid is going to get above that high, but you want the mid to get above the high of the bar. Okay, you want that mid to get above the high of the bar, and then this bar here will turn green, and vice versa. If it can get below the bar, do you want the mid to fall below the bar? And if so, that bar will turn red. That's what's making for the bar color. And in most cases, what will end up happening, should that happen to the upside, it is suggesting to you that it can go that far. All right, it's really simple. Now, if you can't find that, the very next thing you'll want to do, there's our signal. All right, so there's that signal, the circle with the triangle. Really important. You don't want them closing under that bar. Big wick, little wick. All right, you want to try to find that. And if you can't find that, here's your last ditch effort to get it to work. And hopefully it's at least two of these things together. You want to get that body to be able to fit into this body at least twice. All right, so if you can't get this, find this. And if you can't find that, find this. And there should be at least two of these scenarios. I prefer three. Now, if you get all three, fantastic. You are doing wonderful. That's all three. You got a bigger wick, smaller wick. The mid got above the high. This body can fit in there twice. Awesome. We kind of got the same thing here. So if you can get all three, it's just wonderful. All right, so do you have it to the downside? Let's find it. Okay, so we had it here. Okay, that body can fit in there twice. It's a big wick, and mid fell beneath that low. That kind of works. All right, so that's my time with you. Again, I'm not going to go through the chart scale. Watch the video from this morning. I even talked about the trend. So yes, take your time. If you need additional information, I do provide that as well. We've covered quite a bit in these last 3 days, so be sure. Again, I got a signal on the upside here for the upside. Be sure if you need education, you may want to consider getting on the private playlist. And if not, stick around on the channel. There's a lot of free information on this channel that it definitely give you a solid foundation to build on. All right. And I wish you all the best with your trading. Take care.